Beijing is the focus of a major international story we are following this morning. And while neither side is calling it a thaw just yet, there are positive sounding remarks from both China and the U.S. after talks between Chinese President Xi Jinping and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Blinken sit down with Xi this morning capped his two-day diplomatic mission. Tensions between Washington and Beijing have become increasingly icy over U.S. support for Taiwan and the downing of what the U.S. calls a Chinese spy balloon back in February. That incident led to Blinken postponing a trip to China planned for that month. He is the highest-ranking Biden administration official to visit Beijing and also the first U.S. Secretary of State to make that trip in 5 years. Patrick Falk joins us now on this story from Singapore. Patrick, Blinken has been speaking to reporters. How is he characterizing the talks?
Yeah, well, look, everything that's been happening over the last couple of hours has been watched very closely indeed. A very important and symbolic meeting has taken place with President Xi Jinping. We're still trying to get a little bit more detail on what Secretary Blinken is saying to reporters, but the gist of it really is that he sees and China sees it as being important and in the interests of both countries to steady that relationship. He has, of course, been in marathon talks over the last few days. Yesterday, the discussions with Qingang went on for around 7.5 hours, and the discussions with Wang Yi went on for about 3 hours. So this meeting with President Xi is the culmination of that, signaling that the two sides are trying to patch their differences together. We've got a clip from Secretary Blinken in that meeting with Xi Jinping. Let's take a listen in.
In every meeting, I stress that direct engagement and sustained communication at senior levels is the best way to responsibly manage our differences and ensure that competition does not veer into conflict. And I heard the same from my Chinese counterparts. We both agree on the need to stabilize our relationship.
You know, one of the interesting things is that all along we've been hearing from the Americans that the main thing on the agenda is really to re-engage with Beijing and to keep communication lines open. And it's been notable that there haven't been many official readouts to come out of the American side, and they haven't been telling much about what's been going on in these discussions behind closed doors, whereas the Chinese, by contrast, have been making quite a demonstration, if you like, of the discussions that have been taking place. We've been hearing a lot from Chinese media, and in a sense, you might argue that optically the Chinese do seem as though they've come out of these discussions looking stronger. And certainly today, from the talks that took place with State Councillor Wang Yi, he was quoted in Chinese media as having told Secretary Blinken that the reason or the root cause for the breakdown in relations is because of the US's wrong perception of China, and that this had led to misguided policies. And he urged the US to reflect deeply and to work with China to manage their differences. So, as I say, it's been very important optically for the Chinese to demonstrate to their domestic audience that they are speaking from a position of strength, but it doesn't necessarily signal that they are managing this relationship more responsibly.
Thank you, Patrick. Patrick Falk in Singapore.